Hey everybody, it's Callie and Yvette with Tank Tops and Sweaters. And today we are joined with Christy, who is one of my favorite people. She's also a counselor, a licensed mental health counselor at Sweet Maple Counseling. And today we just want to have a conversation about mindset and what it means to maybe like spring clean your mindset and reset it. So thank you so much for joining us, Christy.
Thank you so much for having me here with you guys.
We're so excited.
Me too.
So tell us what your definition of mindset is.
Mindset. I think mindset is the way that we look at a situation, the attitudes that we have, the thought process that we have, and all of what goes into how we look at situations and life as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. We have these conversations a lot because we always, especially like I have teenagers and young adults, right? And so it's like your mindset kind of like sets the conversation in your head too, right? Like if you have that negative mindset, then you're going to have that negative conversation. And if you have that positive outlook, that positive mindset, then you're more likely to have like that positive self-talk in your head.
Yeah, definitely. And ideas and assumptions too go into that as well, right? The way that we think something is going to go and how that might affect the conversation or situation unintentionally.
Absolutely. I have learned that firsthand.
I also feel like there's different influences that can, influence our mindsets, i.e., like the weather. Like I know here, and I'm in the Pacific Northwest, so in Oregon, like it's dark, it's cloudy, it's kind of gloomy through the winter time. I feel like my mindset is just so much more kind of in that space. And then once spring comes along, I feel re-energized. I feel like, the sun is out, but I feel this shift of more, I don't know, positive thinking or thinking up. It's kind of a weird thing. Do you feel like weather kind of plays into that?
Totally. So there, technically there's seasonal affective disorder there. So that is a thing. But I will say, even personally, if it's raining, my mindset is I just want to sit on the couch. I want to be under a blanket. I want to be cozy watching a movie. If it's cold, I don't want to leave the house. When it gets dark at 5 p.m, it's hard to feel excited and encouraged and motivated. But then when spring and summer rolls around and it's sunny and it's hot, for me personally, my mindset is just productivity and lightness and the whole day is ahead, right? So no, definitely. I think that weather plays a role for a lot of people at a psychological level for sure.
Mm-hmm. And I think that we tend to sometimes, I don't know, I find this especially with my kids, we get stuck in like a kind of like a mindset rut, I guess is what I would call it. And trying to, help yourself and help your kids understand that it's like you can change your mindset, right? So like, what are some tips you think to help somebody, I know you can't change somebody's mindset for them, but help guide them through like changing their mindset into a little bit more positive instead of focusing on the negative?
Trying to take a small shift of perspective, I think is a good one because it's something small and it's not something that feels big and overwhelming. So what is one small way that we can look at the day differently, that we can look at the situation differently, or even a small goal is a good one too, because there's something to be said for feeling productive with mindset. And so maybe that goal is putting on clothes for the day, pajamas, or stepping outside and spending 10 minutes outside can really help with mindset. Or a 10-minute pick me up, 10-minute dance party, 10 minutes doing something to shift.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. I love that 10-minute dance party. Someone had once told me like you don't leave your house in the morning until you do a dance party in the kitchen or something, because it changes the way your whole day goes.
I had a 30-minute dance party in the shower this morning and I felt like a new person when I stepped.
Yes. That is awesome.
It's fantastic, isn't it?
Yeah.
I know we were at the Taylor Swift concert and you see like everybody's kind of like overwhelmed and there's like 70,000 people there. And all of a sudden she comes on and everybody starts dancing and the whole vibe just changes, in the whole stadium. It was like one of those things where you can just see the effects of music and dancing on somebody's mindset and their mood. It
Oh,
was
yeah.
fantastic.
Well, it's funny you say that because my dance party this morning was Taylor Swift as well, and trying to change my mindset into accepting that I'm not going to a concert. So I'm going to make my own.
I love that. Make your
That is
own.
awesome. That is awesome.
That is
Definitely make it
fantastic.
your own.
Yeah. So I also think that there's a difference between having like, we've talked about this with my kids before, like a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. And so can you tell us the difference like between the two?
Definitely. So a fixed mindset is when we are set on something being true. So that might be, I'll never be enough, or I'm not good enough, or I don't know how to do that. Or I'll never be able to reach that goal. So we have the belief and the assumption and we're set in that. It's not able to change. Where a growth mindset, we're thinking with growth opportunities. So right now, I don't know how to do this, but I'm working on it, or I just haven't achieved that goal yet. So it's just, there's a lot more room for opportunity with a growth mindset and positivity.
Yeah. And it's part of that to me, and so correct me if I'm wrong, is kind of changing that internal dialogue we have from saying like, I can't, I have to, I don't want to I will, or I get to, like just changing the way we're having that conversation.
100%. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
huge. The self-dialogue, I think, affects a lot of different parts of our mindset, if not everything. What
Yeah.
we're thinking up here is really, really big with mindset and the way that we think about things.
Yeah. And I think when you get stuck in that negative loop, it's like so hard to it's like you're on that hamster wheel that you just can't get off. But just finding that one positive thing that switches it makes a huge difference.
And I love what you said, Kelly, because it's like just changing the words, not necessarily, changing that sentence of I can't do this. It's can I do this?
Mhm.
Or can I try this? Can I allow myself to do that? Like I like how it's just changing like specific words to a more positive aspect of it or outlook of it instead of just taking that can't, won't, am not good enough
Yeah.
type narrative.
For sure. And it brings us back to that, my favorite word, shift. Something small is just shifting the belief from I can't to I'm working on it, or I won't to maybe I'll try.
Yeah, I like that. I'm working on it.
Mhm.
Because then it doesn't like shut it down. We're like, I can't. And it's not so overwhelming that's like, I have to. I'm working on it. I'm taking steps. I'm doing the best that I can. I like
Right. And it allows room for change. I'm working on it. So maybe what I went into working on was one thing, but along the way, I realized it's something else.
right.
Mhm.
And I think it's so hard. Like we're so overwhelmed right now with social media and everything's always, there's like constant stimulus coming at us, right? And I think it's so hard. I find it hard sometimes to take that step back and like just figure out what my own mindset is, much less change it or shift it. And do you find that too, that like the stimulus that we're getting is just so overwhelming sometimes for people?
Yes. Yes. Everything is on our phones, and to the point where if your phone's not in the room, it's where's my phone, or where's my iPad, where's my computer. I think as society we are just connected to the web and the internet, and that definitely plays into mindset.
Yeah. And so like we've been doing some things to try to help like shift mindset, like simple things like grounding, and things like that, kind of like remove that stimulus and kind of find that that feel the gravity. Just my feet in the grass is something so simple that definitely like brings me back. But what are some other things as far as like taking that pause, to like be able to step away from all the craziness and even know what your mindset is before you can begin to shift it?
Yes. So my favorite thing for grounding is sensory related techniques. So focusing on things that we can see, things that we can smell, hear, taste, feel. One of the things that I teach people often is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So taking a step back and noticing, looking around the room, what are 5 things that I can see, and describe it to them, describe it to ourselves in full detail. I see the lamp. It's big, it's circular, it's got brown legs, like doing that 5 times, and then working our way through the senses. So 4 things that I can feel in full description, 3 things that I can see, smell, taste, and so on, because it really requires you to focus all of your attention into describing it, which takes our mind off whatever it is that we're thinking about.
I love that. I love that a lot.
Is that like a good reset to kind of reset those negative thoughts or that feeling?
I think it can be. I think it definitely can be, because if anything, it's a distraction. And so when we're able to distract ourselves for a moment, there's opportunity to reset. Sometimes we have to do it over a few times. Sometimes we have to maybe change our environment, take ourselves into a different room, to get that full reset. But I think it can be a good tool for that.
So go ahead.
Oh, no,
Go ahead. Yvette.
I was gonna say, are there like specific words that you might use if someone is in a very, negative mindset or self-negative talk? Or there's like specific words that you might use to help kind of change that mindset or change that thought process?
Nothing specific. I think it's very individualized. So if I'm talking with someone and helping them recognize what it is that they're feeling, maybe we'll come up with a code word for ourselves. Hey, tell yourself that word to remind yourself to do the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique, or whatever it is. So as a form of distraction as well. But I wouldn't say that there's a specific word for everyone.
That makes sense.
I like that. I like
Yeah.
that a lot. Having a code word. That is cool.
And it's good because when you're out in anywhere, you can say, that little code word in it, especially with your kids. I feel like that's one of those things that trying like not to make it a bigger deal and just help them regulate in a situation when you're in this situation, that's very helpful.
Yeah.
Especially with teenagers, because they get so conscious of who is around them, and I think they feel like everyone is watching them at all times and can see all the flaws and everything else. So if you were just to like kind of lean over and whisper a simple little code word that nobody would ever know, then it'd be so helpful, because then they don't feel like, oh my gosh, everyone just heard you tell me to do this.
Absolutely. And not only that, when we're emotionally dysregulated and we're elevated, it can be harder to remind ourselves of what we need to do to help bring ourselves down.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally.
And I've been doing a lot of reading about how like our mindset can actually affect our health too, which is fascinating to me. Like when people are going through an illness or a disease or something like that, how a positive mindset can actually help you heal better. Do you know more about that?
I don't know the research behind
Yeah.
that, but I believe that 100%, right?
Yeah.
Imagine going through any sort of treatment. And if you're in it with, doom and gloom, negative mindset, feeling really down, it just makes the whole experience a little bit more negative. Whereas if you go into something like that, trying to be positive, trying to focus on the people that you're meeting and the opportunities that you're getting out of something so hard, I think it changes the experience. So I'm sure that there's research behind it.
Yeah. And just, I think finding that those little positive moments in amongst, instead of getting stuck on the negative, just changes our whole, like, I don't know for sure, but I'm sure like even just the hormones that are released in our body, like, kind of like being depressed versus being happy. You've got different hormones and chemicals being released in your body, but just that positiveness, kind of like affecting your overall health.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fascinating to me too. So I am also fascinated with this. I've seen this in like a couple of articles, and it's like mindfulness versus mindful. So talking about like how to be mindful without having your mind being full. Does that make sense?
Yes, totally.
So what are some things you suggest for people that want to not have a mind full, but to be mindful?
Right. So I think the act of mindfulness is just trying to be present and aware no matter where you are. And so I encourage people to start small. Start when you're in the shower, just noticing how the shampoo is feeling in your hair and just paying attention to kind of circling back to sensory as
Yeah,
well, um, to be really present in those moments.
I love that because I think if you're present in the moment, then everything else kind of tends to fall away, like all the worries and stuff the list that keeps going through our heads and things like that.
And if
To just
you're used, so sorry, Kelly, I did not mean to cut
no,
you
no,
off.
go ahead.
No,
No, go ahead.
if you're used to practicing it on a regular basis too, it becomes easier to get yourself into that mindful headspace when the world around you is feeling a little bit more hectic and chaotic.
Yeah. And I think it goes back to being stuck in that like loop. It's the same kind of thing, right? Like you're stuck in this seeing that negative and having your mind full of stuff instead of taking the moment to be present in what's actually happening. And I love the senses because that really brings you to the here and now. Like even the shampoo in your hair,
Mhm.
or I'm dancing. Do I feel the grass under my feet? Do I feel the concrete or what am I on?
Right.
Something like to just bring you to that moment. I
Or
love
even
that.
if you're driving in the car, shutting the music off and just trying to spend a few moments in silence and focusing on where you're going, focusing on what you're looking at. It's another great way to let your mind just kind of come to a pause for a moment instead of being overstimulated with music and people and talking.
Yeah.
That is so interesting that you said that about the car because I remember when even my child was very young, like, I wouldn't allow them to have electronics or anything in the car. And it wasn't really that readily available anyway, but at the time, but like watching movies or anything while we were driving around, because I remember being a kid and my mom driving us around. We didn't have any distractions really in the car, right? Like everything was just us sitting in the back seat, taking everything in, where we were going, you know, what other cars were on the road with us, the environment around the trees, the plants, the places we were going, the farms that we passed, the animals, all of that. And I wanted my child to have that same kind of experience because I felt like that was so important. And at the moment, I didn't really understand why that was so important, but I just kind of felt like it really was like, why be watching a movie when you can just take in everything around you as we're driving to the beach or wherever we were going? Because I felt like that was a really more important distraction than than watching a movie in the car or whatnot, which, understandably, I totally understand with kids with, parents with young kids. Sometimes that's kind of a hard thing to juggle, and trying to get everyone to be calm is going to be a very individual thing for each person. But I felt like for us, that was just a natural thing, like just trying to be in that present moment and take everything in.
It's almost a forced mindfulness without
Yeah.
even realizing that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, it is. But I also feel like, our generation, Kelly and my generation, we didn't grow up with that. We didn't have the electronics, we didn't have such distractions. And I feel like now it is everywhere. It is just all over the place. So setting those mindfulness or setting those mindsets is a lot harder than I think it ever has been. So you saying like it's a forced thing to do, it's to have it, it's a conscious thing that you have to make for yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's an act of discipline. We practice it. We get into the habit of doing it at least at some point every single day, just so that we can let our brains have a moment to take a step back and not have to be thinking or working so hard.
because there's so much being thrown at us all day long, like your computer, your phone, your TV, like there's just so much, everything's electronic and everything's just coming at you. And I think I love that you said it just to make it like a daily thing, like to take that time every day and practice it because we are so surrounded by so much coming at us. It's so hard anymore to like take that step back and take a moment to, be mindful so that you can have a positive mindset.
Mhm.
I love that practice. And I think for our kids too, because they are really, there's a lot being thrown at them all day long too.
Right. And the cool thing about being mindful is you can do it in different ways. Whenever I encourage someone to practice mindfulness, I often hear, but Christy, I can't let my thoughts calm down. My thoughts won't stop racing. I'll continue thinking about whatever it is that I'm thinking about. Sometimes they'll even go in and go, I can't just go like this. That stereotypical form of meditation. And so that I always tell them there's guided meditations on YouTube, on those apps, Calm and Headspace, using things like that, that really talk you through where to bring your attention, where to focus your breath, and really help you get a mindfulness practice that you don't have to do on your own. And it goes anywhere from 30 seconds up to 30 minutes or even longer. So it's really tailored for what you need.
Yeah, I think we all have that, like, I have to meditate, I have to be on a pillow, I have to not be able to think anything, I have to totally clear my head for it to
Yes.
be like a mindfulness meditation instead of just, like you said, it can be 30 seconds.
Right. It can be just taking a moment when you're whatever you're doing and just noticing where your hand is or noticing what you're smelling and just focusing in on describing that to yourself. That's a way of practicing being mindful.
I
Yeah.
love
And
that.
do you think that being outside in nature helps that, like helps bring us back to the present in our senses and stuff like that? Like, is that an added benefit?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so for sure. Just being in the sun or even at nighttime, being under the moon, just an energy of being outside that you don't get from being in the house.
Yeah. And probably more sensory stuff too, right? Because you've got different places to place your feet and different things to smell and see and
Right.
um, instead of the indoor lights and things like that.
Exactly. Sitting outside in the grass and noticing what's going on around you feels a lot different than sitting on your couch under a blanket. Both
Mhm.
really great, but just different experiences.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Definitely. I love it because I feel like you just saying being present. So I feel like that's a huge key for our mindset is just to be present in a moment, taking a moment for yourself, taking time for yourself just to take, like I said, 30 seconds at the least. And more if you need it.
Right. So I have one more question though. How do you, I'm trying to figure out how to word this. How do you correlate like a positive mindset with mental health? Like, do you think that you have better mental health the more you practice mindfulness and the better mindset you have? Like, is it one of those things that we are constantly working on? Does that make sense?
I think so. Yeah. So I think that if you are looking at things through more of a positive mindset or a positive lens, we're able to see things a little bit differently. Whereas if we're looking at things through a glass half empty type mindset, we might feel a little bit less
Mhm.
better, worse about ourselves, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, I do think it's something that we're constantly working on. I don't think that anyone has it all figured out in terms of knowing and looking at things glass half full 100% of the time. But I do think that there is a correlation there for sure. And I think that practicing mindfulness can help with that. Because even if we're having the worst day ever and everything keeps going wrong, being able to take a step back and take a breath and focus on the present moment, we're able to find something to shift the mindset a little bit. It might feel hard, it might feel impossible, but I do truly believe that there's always something that we can do, even if it's an act of doing something to bring a shift.
I like that, even if it's an act of doing something. And I love that you emphasize that that we're all working on it, that nobody is ever there. Nobody's ever 100% glass half full, that we all have kind of like our ups and downs, but it's a progress for everyone. It's not anything that we have to, like, it's something I have to achieve. It's just something that's a practice.
Right. And I think it takes a certain level of intentionality behind it too. If you're noticing yourself starting to slip down the negative mindset spiral, just recognizing that and saying, okay, is this helping me in this moment right now? Is letting myself think about all of the worst possible case scenarios going to help my mindset? Most of the time it's no, right? And that's really hard, can be really hard to break that. But just trying to recognize, is this helping me? Can bring a level of insight that can help.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like a lot of people that are following us on Instagram and stuff like that are kind of all in this same boat as everybody's kind of in the same boat, as trying to find that happy place and find that good mind, that really positive mindset. But just knowing that it's like a daily thing, and then it can be something as simple as walking outside, or as simple as giving yourself that 5 4 3 2 1, and taking that all. And it's so helpful to know that we're all going through it, and it's always a practice and nobody's ever there. Does that make sense?
I feel like the more we're gentle on ourselves, that we allow ourselves to just take those moments to create the habits, like you said, I think it will just become more natural. I think it'll be more of a easier thing to do. The more you practice, right, the better it gets.
Definitely. And I think being gentle with yourself is key. I think people get so frustrated because they want to start this new habit and they go out gung ho trying to do the same thing every single day. And then life happens and it doesn't happen, or we miss a day, or it doesn't go the way that we wanted it to. And that's when people tend to give up. So being gentle with it being a process and something that we're continuing to work and adapt to us and our lifestyles.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that. Well, Christy, we cannot thank you enough for joining us for this conversation. I feel like I learned so much. I know Kelly did too.
Yes.
And just being able to talk about this with you was amazing. So thank you so much for joining us. Please follow us on Tank Tops and Sweaters. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, go ahead and hit that right now. We are on Instagram every day of the week, pretty much, with a movement and just some positive energies. So follow us on Instagram at Tank Tops and Sweaters. And we can't wait to see you next time when we will be on here again. So have a wonderful day, and we will see you all soon.
Thank you
Thanks,
so much, guys.
Thank you.